Marianne Luthin serves as the Director of Pro-Life Office and Project Rachel in the Archdiocese of Boston. Always a pleasure to have you here. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about Pro-Life and Project Rachel.
Well, it's the great month to do it because we have the March for Life coming up.
Absolutely.
But tell us about your office, Marianne.
Sure. Well, the Pro-Life Office has actually three different pieces to it. It has Project Rachel, which we'll be talking about. We also run 3 crisis pregnancy centers called Pregnancy Help, and they are just wonderful centers of assistance for any woman of any faith who is experiencing a difficult pregnancy. We have special trained nurses, trilingual caseworkers, and support of a lot of parishes across the Archdiocese. So it's a remarkable ministry, and it's there to show how much the Church really does care about the dignity of every human life. And then we do our Respect Life education program, which does a lot of wonderful work with middle schoolers and young adults, and doing some more work on theology of the body in upcoming months.
Do you think a lot of it is all about education, where people need to be educated about what life is and how vital and precious it is?
It's education and formation, and which we could talk about, but I want to start with some good news on that front, because a lot of people don't realize it, that right now the abortion rate is lower in the United States than it was before Roe versus Wade. We've had a 50% reduction in the rate of abortions, and that's because of a new generation which has been educated very differently, has been formed, and you know, a lot of them have gone to the Marches for Life over the years too, and really have understood the importance of this issue.
And I've seen the March for Life, and I don't think it gets publicized as much as it should be. It's huge, and it's mostly young people.
Yeah, and it wasn't always that way, because I can remember way back after Roe versus Wade, you didn't have so many young people in that enthusiasm and a real sense of joy. It's a beautiful encounter, and that's why we're so excited when kids from the Archdiocese can go down and have Mass with Cardinal Sean and just be part of this remarkable outpouring of support.
With other young adults who believe in the same thing they do.
Absolutely.
And that must be very encouraging. So Project Rachel, tell us about Project Rachel.
Project Rachel is a remarkable ministry of the Catholic Church, and I always try to emphasize that it is a ministry of the Catholic Church, because sometimes people get the impression that because the Church is so opposed to abortion that there's no room for forgiveness for someone who's been through that experience. And just the opposite, the Church has developed this specialized ministry because we know that the pain from abortion is unique. There's a sense of the guilt and the regret over what has happened, but there's also a profound sense of loss over the child that was lost, over the relationships that were lost, over what was happening at the time in the woman's life when she made that decision to have the abortion, or other people made the decision for her.
And do you find that a lot of people are seeking you out because of the numbers were astronomical, and thankfully, as you say, they've come way down. Do you find people seeking you out?
Oh, absolutely. And what's interesting, just because of those numbers, many, I would say a majority of the women who contact us are on the older side. Mm-hmm. So, they have been dealing with this pain for 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years. Yeah. Their entire adult life has been marked by the pain of this abortion. And for many of them, especially early on, there was such shame attached to this issue that they felt that they couldn't talk to anybody. They felt that God didn't love them anymore. They weren't worthy of love or respect. They weren't even worthy to go into a church. And that's why it's so important that they realize that Project Rachel is there and will provide the support, the availability of specially trained priests for sacramental reconciliation. We have a remarkable retreat program and an ongoing support group so women can continue to grow in their faith. Because ultimately, Project Rachel is about a personal encounter with the love and mercy of God. Mm. And that makes a profound impact on a woman, profound.
And all confidential.
Absolutely, all confidential, and that's so important. And I'm the one who answers the phone, so
they'll be talking to you.
I hear, absolutely, they'll be talking to me, and I hear the concerns. And when we send out the advertisements for the retreats, for example, it never says the location. And so people say, well, where is it? And I said, well, happy to tell you, but we need a confidentiality pledge so that everyone can feel comfortable coming. And I've even had people say, are there going to be protesters there? I said, no, absolutely not. Nobody knows where we are. But, you know, this is all about encountering the love and mercy of God in a way in which is going to speak directly to you.
You must hear some wonderful stories, too, Marianne, of those women who have carried this burden for so many years and finally have the opportunity to realize that they are loved. It must be one of the highlights of your job.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, women who come and, you know, perhaps they've been away from the church for 30, 35 years, and then to be able to go to the retreat, receive the sacrament of reconciliation, and then for the first time in 35 years receive the Eucharist. And what a powerful impact that has on everyone who was there.
And by the way, that's not just something that is wonderful for them, but that's wonderful for all of us who are members of the church.
Absolutely, and so many women who have had this experience of profound transformation come back and are so alive in the faith, and they are doing wonderful, wonderful work in their parishes as well. So they are really helping to build up the church as well through their pain.
What's your biggest challenge?
Well, one of our challenges, we get a lot of challenges, is you know, ironically, because we are a confidential ministry in an age of social media, it's sometimes hard to get the message out. You know, so you can't really, you know, have people doing little video clips or putting out videos or, you know, liking us on Facebook. And so that is, it's a huge challenge to try to work out a way. That's why a program like this is so helpful. And we've had women call after hearing programs like this, by the way.
So, well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So where can people contact you? How do they contact you?
Well, I encourage them, if at all possible, to call. We know how difficult it is to make that call, but it's the best way to begin a conversation and to establish a relationship. And you could call anytime during regular hours at 508-651-3100. So it's 508-651-3100. The other option is to begin the conversation through email. And again, I'm the only one who checks this, so it's confidential, but it's help@projectrachelboston.com. And part of the reason we have that email available is that for some women, they simply cannot pick up the phone and say the words, I had an abortion. It's just too difficult. So, you know, sometimes, you know, if we have a conversation back and forth on email, explain a little bit about the program, say, well, if you would feel comfortable with giving me your number, we can make the call for you. Get started that way.
And let's talk about that for one moment. I'm going over time, but I don't care because this is good.
Great.
So when somebody calls, there's no judgment.
Absolutely.
It's all about healing and bringing someone closer to God. So absolutely, I can understand how someone would be afraid and be very nervous about it. But would you reassure them that it is a confidential conversation and one of love and care?
I can assure you that 102%, if there is such a mathematical term. But you know, so many women have said they've tried to pick up the phone, they start to dial, and they put it down. They just can't do it because they don't have the words. But if you're calling, we know why you're calling. So if you just get yourself to that point, we'll start the conversation, and trust me, the Holy Spirit will flow at that point. And so what I often say to women who call, you know, you've responded to a grace. You know, thank you for calling, because, you know, they've thought about it sometimes many, many years. They've maybe seen it in the parish bulletin, heard about it on a program or something, and they just couldn't make the call. And then all of a sudden, something tells them, this is the day, I just have to do it. And they do it. And that's why it's so important that phone be answered.
Yeah, and it's a conversation, then it becomes, and by the way, probably, as we had said, a great burden lifted off of them. Okay, so once again, Project Rachel, what's the email? help@projectrachelboston.com. You have to have that Boston in there first to get to us. And the phone number is 508-651-3100. Marianne, always a pleasure to have
Oh,
you
thank
on
you
the
so
show.
much,
We'll
Jay.
have you back.